So Jim, let me start. We've been covering a lot in this edition about the America's Cup Challenge, and we had a question about that. Why did you decide to back the UK Challenge for the America's Cup?
Well, it wasn't something that was sort of anticipated well in advance. It was simply a chance meeting that I had with Ben Ainsley in March. I just sort of became intrigued by the possibility of sort of sponsoring that initiative with Ben Ainsley, who's a very impressive individual. It's this combination of, technology and sport. We've got the best sailor in the world, Ben. But, the first half of that challenge is to get a competitive boat to the start line. And the boat that has been specified for the next America's Cup is really off the charts in terms of sort of technical evolution. It's going to sail at almost 100 kilometres an hour, and nobody's ever built anything like it. I mean, if we do ever get this thing to sail in a straight line at full speed, it's going to be quite sensational. It'll be nobody will have ever seen anything like it. It will be absolutely stunning.
America's Cup leads on to a next question, which we've had quite a few different people from Giorgio Martini and Patrick Giefers, George Watson, Luke Tice, about the issue of plastics in the ocean. What's your view about this issue and what we as INEOS could do about that, which is a growing concern for a lot of people?
Plastic was designed, obviously, to have longevity. We've strived very hard to make plastics very resilient, and hence, when they're in the ocean, they don't biodegrade very quickly. Can we make biodegradable plastics which actually fulfill their function and then subsequently biodegrade? And there's quite a lot of science going on there, and we're doing some of that. And then obviously the other area is recycling of plastics. But neither of these are easy nuts to crack. The recycling of plastics, the problem is that if you mix all the plastics together, you've got polyethylene, polypropylene, PVC, polyurethane. So, the science isn't there today to be able to separate out the individual monomers from the individual plastics, go back to square one and then produce the plastic again. There's not a quick solution to it. But, we have to do what we can to help, and we have to keep working to find solutions to it. So, we're very open-minded, and we recognise the problem, and we'd like to be, responsible producers.
Okay, from a global issue to more of a European issue, the vexed issue of Brexit.
Oh yes.
Not
getting any better.
Not getting any better. Where do you think we're up to on this?
I think my view, and I think the general INEOS view, remains the same, which is that mainland Europe is a very important trading partner for the UK. And the UK is a very important trading partner for mainland Europe, because the UK is an enormous market today. It's fifth largest in the world or something like that. And, the original concept of Europe was the common market, which meant that we had relatively modest trade barriers, so we could trade efficiently and sensibly between the various partners. I've always been in favour of the common market with sensible trade arrangements between the various parties, but this concept of the United States of Europe has never been one that I've bought into, and relinquishing sovereignty of the UK I don't think is a sensible thing. Both parties have got the same amount to gain and the same amount to lose, I think, really. So I just hope common sense prevails.
From a difficult European issue to a positive one, as far as we're concerned, we've just recently announced a massive investment in a new cracker and a new PDH unit. Yeah. Good few questions on this. Fundamental question, why Europe?
It's an enormously important market for INEOS. It's where we have most of our assets. We've probably got well over 50% of our assets in Europe. If you sort of delve a little bit into our chemical position in Europe, we are extremely short on ethylene. We've got a vulnerability there. Can we source enough of those molecules to serve our derivatives business? And secondly, the second issue is that we're leaving a lot of profit on the table if we can profitably make those two molecules, the ethylene and the propylene molecule. So we will be the first people to invest in this magnitude in Europe for 25 years. So it's a real, I think, sort of statement of faith in the European market, really, to invest almost 3 billion euros.
Talking about investment and growth, we've had quite a few questions around our energy business. What's the next steps, do you think, in our oil and gas business in terms of offshore and indeed onshore?
We're a respectable player in the North Sea now, sort of top 10 player in the North Sea. We're pleased with our acquisitions. It's very clear we still have a lot to learn. It's very different from the chemicals business, which obviously we've been in for 20 years, so we understand that. And I think, we'll continue to grow in oil and gas step by step. And we'll try not to get too carried away, but we'll try to continue to move forward.
Let me finish and go on to, certainly in Bill Shankly's words, the most important thing there is to talk about, which is football.
Yeah.
I had a couple of impassioned questions, one from Alison Mills in Nitros in Hull and one from an anonymous Lausanne football fan.
Yes.
The Lausanne football fan asks, were we expected to take a step back before we could stride forwards?
Well, no, I don't think we were planning to plummet into the second division in Switzerland, no, but I don't think it's necessarily going to be a bad thing for us. There's an awful lot to learn, so I think having taken a step back and consolidating in the lower division, we're top of it. We've played 6 games, we're top of the division. I'm hopeful that we'll skip back up to the top division. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. We've got the new ground that's obviously going to be built. So, no, I'm not downhearted at all. I think, it's a journey.
And Alison says, are you planning to buy another club? And if so, could you make it Hull City?
Hull City. It's not high on our list, I have to confess. Although it was one of my very first jobs when I was at school, was selling Golden Goal tickets at Hull City at the ground in Boothfree Road. I don't know whether they're still there actually. The Cadbury family had just paid for a new stand, and I used to sell Golden Goal tickets, and they used to give me a seat in the best stand. So I was a regular supporter of Tigers, as they were called in those days. But I haven't thought about getting my chequebook out.
So you've probably done your bit for Hull City.
I've done my bit, yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.